Okay. Welcome to the link page. I'm here with Ember this morning, and I'm going to be having her share her recovery story. So we're just going to be talking a little bit about recovery and mental health and things and how it's affected her life and where she's at today. So Ember, if you want to just give us a little idea of how you got started with the addiction and
Okay, so my name's Ember, and I'm 31 months and 1 day sober from alcohol. That was my substance of choice. I began with my first drink when I was 9 years old. It was sort of a release from my really abusive childhood, and from then I was off and running all the way up until just a couple years ago. And I stay sober today, just 1 day at a time. I have a good support system now. I go to a therapist. I'm in college. I work 2 jobs, and I volunteer my time campaigning and also guest speaking at a few local area schools. Growing up, it was pretty rough. There was a lot of mental abuse as well as physical abuse and some other types of abuse. So drinking was a release for me to escape those traumas.
Okay. And you have family history, right? You said your father.
Oh yeah, my dad died of a massive heart attack at the age of 50 from, I believe, from what I've been told, a lot of cocaine. So from then, my mom also, she has a lot of mental illnesses, and she would self-medicate with drugs, alcohol, you name it. And so monkey see, monkey do. I thought that was okay growing up at a very young age. So I, of course, dabbled in those things as well.
And you said at 9-year-old, cigarette was your first.
Oh yeah. Cigarette was my first high, because boy did I got really lightheaded, and I kind of liked it. And then I took my first, I don't want to say sip of alcohol, because it wasn't a sip. It was more of a couple of gulps of vodka, just straight out of the bottle. I kind of drooled a little bit, but I liked the sensation that it gave me. And then from there, I dabbled in other substances like marijuana, shrooms, acid. I never did anything more than that, but I always went back to alcohol. That was like my buddy, you know? Yeah.
And from the first time, you said you fell in love, right?
I loved it. Absolutely. I loved it because it numbed me. I didn't feel anything anymore, and I wanted more of that feeling, so I was constantly chasing it all the time.
So what was your first experience with alcohol causing problems for you?
Oh, lots of fights. I got into a lot of fights. My sister and I would fight horribly. I would go to school and pick fights with people in school. I got arrested for the first time at 14 years old. I went to the detention home for 30 days. Then I was on house arrest for another month, and then I was on intensive probation for 2.5 years until I turned 17.
Okay. And when you were a teenager, you were removed from your house, right?
Yes. At 15 years old, Children's Services finally stepped in for the last time, and my uncle and aunt got full legal custody of me.
Okay. So did being removed from that environment stop you from using?
Yes and no. It stopped me from using as often as I was back then, but I still would a little bit dabble in it. I was deathly afraid of my uncle. I was afraid of getting in trouble and doing the wrong thing, so that kind of kept me in line. But then I got a job when I was 17 working in a salon. So, and I went to JVS for cosmetology. So I didn't really dabble in it too very much, but I still did.
Okay. And you went on to get married. And
Yes, I got married at 25 or 26 years old. Didn't last long. The that we were together was 10 years, but 6 months after our marriage, I got sick of it. I was married to a heroin addict, and I didn't know it. I was the wife, everybody knows what your husband's doing but you. So that was fun, finding everything out after the divorce. But he actually just a few years ago recently thanked me for divorcing him. He said that it saved his life because I enabled him. I didn't know that. So he's remarried. They have kids. He's doing really well, from what I hear. And then when I was going through my divorce, though, I was getting wasted. Not just drunk, I mean wasted. Every single chance I could. I had custody of my youngest sister at the time. So when she went off to her mom or dad's, that was my time to shine. And I would get wasted and go downtown Amherst and hit up all the bars. I would drink and drive. Never got a DUI or an accident. I did take out my tree once in my driveway. I thought my friends just put some branches in my mirror, but that was just me backing into the tree. And then it got progressively worse when I turned 30. I got arrested 18 times in one summer. And my ex was afraid of me for whatever reason. From what I hear from him, is that his girlfriend put him up to it to get a protection order out on me. So they charged me with a felony and sent me to Marysville prison. I sat for 2 years. So this coming March 17th will be 9 years I was released from prison. And when I got out that day, after being locked up for that long, I said, somebody give me a beer, and I was off and running again. And the pandemic happened in 2020. I was with a super abusive man, and he would be very physical with me and body slam me, chokehold me, punch me like I was a man, until one day I fought back. But we were laid off, and I remember I tried Jack Daniel's honey whiskey for the first time, and I fell in love. And so I would wake up drinking the whiskey every single day. I would chase it with my coffee. I'd wake up with the shakes. So I would go to work with a big thermos with a couple whiskey cubes in it, and I would just fill that with Jack Daniel's every day. I would drink beer, but it didn't really do the trick like whiskey did, as fast as whiskey did. But when I was getting beat up from my ex, it made my body go limp, so I could take the beatings a little bit better, unfortunately. So I became extremely addicted to alcohol. And then, it continued on for a couple years after that as well.
What part do you think your mental health played in your substance use?
A huge part. Only because I was misdiagnosed all of my life. I was diagnosed as just manic depressive, depressed, anxiety. So I was being treated for the wrong things until I finally went to a doctor, and I spoke to her for 3.5 hours in one visit, just sobbing, pouring my heart out. And she finally was like, listen, I think that you're bipolar. And since then, I got put on the correct medication. Every single day I take that pill with my coffee. I'm still kind of up and down, but I kind of like it. It gives me a little bit of a thrill in my life, but I'm not as extreme high, extreme low as I used to be, because I used to, when I was really low, I oftentimes think about ways to die. And then when I would drink, it would just kind of intensify that feeling. But I feel like since I got my mental health in check, just 3 years ago, this coming May, I got on it. It saved my life, and that's when I got sober. Was June 25th of 2022.
Okay. So tell us about some of the things that you're doing again today in a little more detail.
What I'm doing today is I work at a salon part-time, and then I also do hair at my home. I also volunteer for an organization called Men of Courage, and I go into Lorraine, Elyria, and Vermilion City schools, and I share my story with the children, and I ask them how their home life is, how their day is. It's really, really rewarding. And I also go to college. I want to be a mental health therapist, I'll receive my Master's of Arts in about 4 years from this coming June. And my main focus, I want to be battered women and men, abused children, and troubled teens, because I've been all of those things. So I feel like people that need somebody like me can relate to somebody that has actually been through it.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of things do you do in your own recovery that helps keep you sober?
Oh boy, my phone rings constantly. It's just going off right now. Of people that are trying to get sober or stay sober. I check in with people daily. I do campaign work for Jack Hall, who's our sheriff. Also Tony Sillo, who's the prosecutor. I stay really busy because I'm afraid that if I sit still too long, I may think about alcohol. I don't know yet, but I'm one of those people that has to constantly stay busy. So when people need something, I'm there to help. I find a lot of fulfillment in that.
Okay. So any advice for people struggling out there that want to get sober but don't necessarily know how or don't think they can?
Right here. I'm living proof, you guys. I never thought in a million years I would ever get sober or be level-headed enough to go back to college at 40 years old. And here I am loving it. It's a little stressful. But I found, for me, the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous has really been a good, huge support for me. But also, me being such an open book has really helped open those floodgates of all those other people. And it's kind of crazy because when I'm at work, I seem to get all the people that are in recovery sitting in my chair, which is just, I feel like it's God's way of moving in through me to keep going in the direction that I'm going now. But I just stay busy. I help people as much as I can. I work, I go to school, I do the campaign work. I love gardening, I love plants, and animals. But my life is just centered around my sobriety and my mental health. So I believe that if you get the proper diagnosis and the proper treatment, then you are well on your way to becoming sober as well.
How important do you think it is to have that spiritual component in recovery?
I think it's very important. I think it's very important that you believe in something, whether that be God, a higher power, whatever is up there. Because when I was wanting to get sober, it was 3 years ago this coming April. I was laying in my bed and I was staring at my ceiling and I saw God's face, or Jesus actually, in the ceiling. And I started talking to him and I said, you gotta help me. I'm spiraling out of control. I'm either gonna end up dead or I'm gonna end up back in prison. And from that moment on, I just felt his presence just guiding me. And then 2 months later, I got sober with his help, because when I was homeless, there's a poem called Footprints in the Sand. And I remember God was next to me the whole time. There were many, when I got kidnapped and human trafficked, he was there. He was right next to me. And he got me out of those horrible times. But I feel like it is very, very important.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you sharing your story with us. And I wish you all the best. And I'm sure you're going to be doing some great things.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we're hoping everybody's going to come and watch and listen to the powerful story that you got and get some hope and strength from what you have to say.
Thank you.